So, have you ever wondered how the good guys in cybersecurity stay one step ahead of the criminals? Well, it's pretty simple, really. They have to learn to think, act, and even attack just like them. Today, we're diving deep into the hacker's playbook, basically hacking the hacker, so you can build a much better defense. All right, let's get into it. This quote right here, it's pretty much the entire philosophy of ethical hacking wrapped up in one sentence. I mean, it's not just about playing defense and waiting for an attack to happen. No, it's about a complete mindset shift, getting so deep into the attacker's head that you can predict their next move and stop it before it even starts. It's proactive, not reactive. And this analogy just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? Think about it. A fire department doesn't just practice putting out fires. They study arsonists. They learn their methods, what they use to start the fire, why they do it, and for what reason? To stop the fire before there's even a spark. That is exactly what ethical hacking is for, our digital world. Okay, so if we're going to build this digital fortress, right, we first have to understand what the invaders are even after. What are they trying to break? What are they trying to steal? To do that, we have to get inside the hacker's mindset. So, at its core, information security is really all about one thing: protecting information and the systems that store and move it around. But protection can be a pretty vague word, right? So, what does it actually mean? Well, the pros have a blueprint for this, a kind of foundational guide. It's called the CIA Triad. All right, so what exactly are we protecting here? Let's break down this triad. First up, you've got confidentiality. This is all about keeping secrets, well, secret. If your private DMs get leaked online, that's a confidentiality failure. Simple. Next is integrity. This means making sure data is trustworthy and hasn't been messed with. Imagine you send $100, but someone changes it to 10,000. That's a huge integrity problem. And finally, availability. This is pretty straightforward. Can you get to your stuff when you need it? If your favorite streaming service crashes right before the big season finale because of an attack, that's an availability failure. These three pillars, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, are the prime targets for every hacker out there. So we've got our three pillars, the CIA Triad that we're trying to protect. But how does an attacker actually go about trying to knock them down? Well, it turns out there's a surprisingly simple formula that applies to almost any attack you can think of. You can almost think of it like a recipe. For any attack to actually work, you need these three ingredients. First, you need a motive. That's the why. Why are they even bothering? Then, you need a method. That's the how. What tools and techniques are they going to use? And last, but definitely not least, you need a vulnerability. That's the opening. It's that weak spot, that crack in the armor, that lets the whole attack succeed. You need all three. Now, looking at the why, this is where it gets really interesting. You'd think it's all about money, right? And yeah, financial gain is a huge piece of the pie. But look at everything else. We're talking espionage, political ideology, or even just good old-fashioned revenge. What this really tells us is that if you think cybersecurity is only about protecting your credit card numbers, you're missing a massive part of the threat. Understanding that motive is absolutely key. Okay, so we've covered the why, but what about the who? You know, it's super easy to just picture that classic movie hacker, some shadowy figure in a dark room with a hoodie. But the reality? Oh, it's way, way more complicated than that. Let's take a look at the whole spectrum. So on the two complete opposite ends of the spectrum, you've got your white hats and your black hats. It's pretty clear cut. White hats, they're the good guys. They're the cybersecurity pros using their skills for defense, and this is the most important part. They have explicit permission to do what they do. Black hats are the total opposite. They're malicious, they're illegal, and they have zero permission. The line in the sand is really just intent and permission. That's it. But you know, it's almost never that black and white. The hacking world is a whole ecosystem with a bunch of different players. You've got script kiddies, who are basically beginners using tools other people built. You've got hacktivists, who are driven by a political or social cause. Then you get to the big leagues, state-sponsored hackers backed by governments with nearly unlimited resources. And then there are the wild cards. Gray hats operate in that fuzzy middle area. Maybe they'll hack you without permission, but then tell you how they did it. And red hats? They're like vigilantes, actively hunting down the black hats. And of course, you can't forget the insiders, the employees who already have the keys to the kingdom. So, with this whole complicated world of threats out there, how on earth do you defend yourself proactively? Well, this is where ethical hacking comes into play. This is the solution. And if you take away only one thing from this whole discussion, let it be this. There is one single word that separates an ethical hacker from a flat-out criminal, and that word is permission. An ethical hacker might use the exact same tools and techniques as a bad guy, but the difference, the critical, non-negotiable difference, is that they have explicit legal permission from the owner. Without that piece of paper, you're not a hero. You're just breaking the law.
And this isn't some chaotic free-for-all. It's a highly structured process, a 5-phase mission. Phase 1 is reconnaissance, just gathering as much intelligence as you can on the target. Phase 2 is scanning, where you start actively poking and prodding, looking for those vulnerabilities. Phase 3 is the big one, gaining access, actually exploiting a weakness to get inside. But it doesn't stop there. Phase 4 is maintaining access, seeing if you can stay in the system without being detected. And finally, Phase 5 is clearing tracks. This tests whether a real attacker could cover their trail and get away without anyone ever knowing.
Now, this whole process, it doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It's not the Wild West. Modern ethical hacking has to operate inside a really complex world filled with incredibly powerful new tools, but also very, very strict legal rules of the game.
And let's talk about the biggest tool changing the game right now, AI. Artificial intelligence is a massive game changer, both for the attackers and the defenders. For the good guys, AI is incredible for efficiency. It automates all the boring, repetitive stuff. It's great for prediction. It can analyze huge amounts of data to forecast future threats. And it's a lifesaver for detection, helping find those super dangerous zero-day flaws. You know, the ones that are brand new that nobody knows about yet, and for which there's no patch. AI is a huge advantage, but remember, it's a tool to help the experts, not replace them. And like I said, ethical hackers have to play by the rules. The legal landscape is, well, it's a minefield. You have to know what you're doing. In Europe, you've got GDPR, which protects personal data with the threat of absolutely massive fines. In the US, there's HIPAA for all things health information. And pretty much everywhere, if you touch a credit card, you've got to follow PCI DSS. The bottom line is, you can't just plead ignorance. You have to know the law, period.
So we've taken a peek inside the attacker's mind. We've looked at their motives, their methods, their whole playbook. Which brings us to the final question I want to leave you with. Now that you know how the enemy thinks, how does that change the way you think about your own defense? How does it change how you protect your own digital life?